Hello, everyone. This is Cozy Night Frights. Before you go to sleep, please like the video and subscribe and tell me where you watch from and what time are you listening. The first time Eli heard the scratching, he thought it was just the wind. Itu came around 2:17 a.m., soft at first, barely a whisper against the side of the trailer, long, dry drags like a twig scratching across rusted siding. He rolled over, half asleep, and muttered, "Coyotes." But there was no howling, no movement, just the scratching. Slow, deliberate, moving from one window to the next. He got up, shuffled to the window, and peered out. The desert stretched silent and endless beneath the pale moon. Mesquite trees bent, slightly in the wind, and beyond them, the edge of the old canyon shimmered like a jagged scar. He saw nothing, not at first, but just as he turned to go back to bed. A shape moved near the fence. Low, quick, gone before he could blink. He stared, heart skipping, maybe a coyote, maybe a trick of moonlight. He rubbed his eyes, muttered to himself, and went back to bed. The scratching didn't return that night, but in the morning he found tracks, not paw prints. Bare feet, thin, long-toed, pressed deep into the sand near the window, and next to them, drawn in the dirt with a single finger, Eli stared at his name in the dirt. The letters weren't scrawled, they were etched with careful pressure, like someone had taken their time. The E curved too smoothly, the L hooked with flair. It looked practiced, like whoever or whatever wrote it had written it before. He crouched down, touched the letters. The dirt was cool, slightly damp from night air. The barefoot prints, beside them, were strange. Not quite human, but not animal either. Toes too long, arch too narrow, and only the front half showed. No heel, like it walked on the balls of its feet. Eli backed away. No one lived nearby. The closest house was 8 miles east, across canyon roads too twisted for tourists and too empty for locals. He stood and scanned the desert again. Nothing but sky and sage. Still. He left for work early that morning. Locked up tight, didn't stop at Joe's Diner for coffee like usual, just drove his old pickup straight to the plant with the radio off and the windows up. At lunch, he didn't tell anyone, didn't mention the tracks, the name, the scratching. He just watched the horizon out the break room window like something might come walking out of it. By nightfall, he was exhausted. He poured 2 fingers of whiskey, sat on the porch with a shotgun beside him, and listened. Nothing. No wind, no animals. Just a hum beneath the silence. Low, barely there, like someone whispering from under the sand. At 2:17 a.m. on the dot, he woke. Not from a dream, from the sound. Scratching. But this time, inside the trailer. Eli sat straight up in bed. The scratching was soft, delicate, not frantic like a rat or dry branches. It was rhythmic, curious. He held his breath. It was coming from behind the closet wall. He stood slowly, careful not to let the floorboards creak. Grabbed the shotgun from beside the door, chambered a shell with a low, metallic click. The scratching paused. Then, it moved, a slow drag of nails behind the thin drywall, from one end of the trailer to the other, brushing just beneath the insulation. Eli tracked it with his eyes, his ears, his gut tightening. It stopped beneath the window, the same one from the night before. He crept to it, breathing through his nose, careful not to fog the glass. The moon cast the yard in silver and shadow. No movement, no breeze. But then, from just beyond the pane, inches from his face, something moved into view. Not a person, not a coyote, just eyes, too wide, too bright, reflecting no light, and a mouth, smiling, but wrong. Too wide and with teeth like cracked bone. Eli jumped back. The scratching returned, now louder, faster, across the inside of the wall, toward the kitchen. He followed, heart hammering, gun raised. But when he rounded the corner, nothing. The trailer was empty. Still, except on the fridge, in smudged brown-red handprints, a single word had been drawn. Skin, he touched it, still damp, still warm. And behind him, just before the light bulb in the hallway popped out with a snap, he heard something whisper, "You don't need all of it." Eli didn't sleep that night. He sat in the corner of the kitchen with his shotgun across his lap, staring at the fridge where the words still shimmered in rusty red. Skin. He waited for dawn like it might burn everything away. But when sunlight finally cracked through the blinds, it only made the silence louder, and that smell lingered, coppery and raw, like old meat left too long in the sun. He checked the walls. No holes, no signs of anything crawling inside. But his name in the dirt was gone. So were the tracks. Wiped clean, as if someone or something had erased them with care. He called in sick to work, told dispatch he caught a fever. They didn't question it. People out here understood when someone got dessert sick. They didn't ask. Around noon, someone knocked at the door. 3 slow knocks. Eli froze. No one ever visited unannounced. He crept to the door, peered through the peephole. At first, he saw himself. Same flannel, same beard, same tired eyes, standing on the porch, staring straight at him. But something was wrong. The man's lips weren't moving, but Eli heard them speak, inside his own head. "Let me in. I'm cold." The Eli on the porch tilted his head. "You said I could come back." Eli stepped back from the door, breath catching. The thing outside smiled, slow and full of teeth. "I saved your skin." The knock came again, louder now. 3 hard slams. Eli raised the shotgun. Aimed at the door, I said, "Bang!" He fired. The door shattered inward, smoke, splinters. Silence. When he stepped outside, heart pounding, no one was there. Just a strip of flannel lying on the porch, his own, and a set of bare footprints walking. Away into the dust, deeper into the canyon. Eli followed the tracks. He didn't think, didn't pack water, didn't load another shell. He just moved, shotgun loose in one hand, the desert swallowing his boots with each step. The flannel strip stuffed into his pocket felt heavier than cloth, like carrying a question he didn't want answered. The tracks led straight south, right toward Crow Canyon, a place the locals didn't speak about much. Not because of superstition, because of memory. People went missing near it. Hikers, ranch hands, kids chasing dogs too far from home. No signs, no remains. Just vanishing. As he walked, the air changed. Sound faded. Even the wind stopped. It was as if the canyon wasn't just a place, but a boundary between the known and something much older. Eli paused at the rim. The ground cracked and sloped down into a narrow, twisting descent littered with scrub brush and stones. The walls were high, red with layered time. He looked down into the shade, following the trail of footprints that grew fresher, wetter, like whoever he followed was sweating through the soles. Then, a noise. Not an animal, not wind, but laughter. High, childlike, echoing upward from deep within the canyon, bouncing off the stone in impossible directions. He gripped the shotgun tighter, swallowed, and descended. The air grew colder the deeper he went. The light thinned. The laughter continued, then cut off mid-breath as if someone slapped a hand over. Eat a child's mouth. At the base of the canyon, the path split into 2 narrow gullies. On the wall between them, scratched deep into the stone, was a phrase. "You saw your face. Now it wants more." Beneath it, hung on a thorn bush, was a face. His, just the skin, like it had been peeled off and dried, eyes empty, mouth open, still smiling. Eli stumbled back. His own face, dried like leather, lips parted in a frozen grin, swayed from the thorn. Bush as the canyon breeze returned in a sudden whisper. He stared in disbelief. The skin had been cut clean. No blood, no tearing. Just lifted, like someone had removed a mask they'd worn too long. He reached out with shaking fingers, touched it. It was cold and familiar. "You left it behind," a voice said softly. Eli spun, shotgun raised, nothing there. But the voice came again. "You didn't need it. I do." Then, a flicker of movement down the right gully, fast. Four-legged. At first, but then upright, Eli raised the gun, heart slamming against his ribs. "Show yourself," he barked. Silence. Then, laughter again. But not a child's this time. His. A perfect copy of his own laugh, echoing off stone, slow and mocking. Eli backed into the wall. Something was playing with him. Something that could be him. He checked the shotgun. One shell left. He turned back to the fork. The left path was narrow, dark, descending deeper. The right was wider, easier, but the skin had been hung beside it like a trophy. He chose the left. Cautiously, he moved into the shadows, every step slow, controlled. He could hear breathing now, not his own. Ahead of him, from the dark, wet and uneven, like lungs that weren't used to being human. He raised the gun again, turned a corner, and stopped cold. There, crouched in the path, was himself. But not. The thing wore his shape loosely, like a shirt stolen from a corpse. The eyes were too wide, the fingers too long. The skin sagged at the edges like it wasn't meant to be worn. It looked up and smiled. "Found it," it whispered. Then it charged. Eli didn't have time to think. He pulled the trigger. Boom! The shot echoed through the canyon, louder than thunder. The thing staggered back, part of its shoulder blown open, but no blood came out, just a dry puff of dust and something like ash. It didn't scream. It laughed. You thought that was enough? It straightened slowly, bones cracking, limbs reforming with wet, stretching sounds. The sagging flesh across its neck rippled as if something inside was trying to crawl out. Eli backed up, the empty shotgun suddenly a useless weight. The thing stepped forward, now fully upright, still grinning. It spoke with his voice. "I wore you once. You're comfortable." Eli ran. Down the narrow path, feet slipping on loose gravel. The creature didn't chase, not yet. It followed, slow and sure, like it knew the way better than he did. As he turned a corner, the walls opened into a narrow hollow, a hidden alcove where twisted roots pushed through stone and water dripped from high above. There were others here, not people. Not anymore. Human skin, hung like garments on the branches. Men, women, children. Some still had faces. Some had two. And in the center of them, arranged like a shrine, was a small pile of bones, fresh, charred black. Atop the pile, pinned in place with a sharpened femur, was a photograph. Faded, burnt at the edges. It was Eli, and standing behind him, half visible in the shadows, that same thing with his face. It had been watching him long before now, long before the scratching. Now it was here. To finish the wearing. Eli stepped back from the shrine, breath shallow. The photograph in the pile, his own face, smiling, unaware, burned into his vision like a memory he never made. The figure behind him, only half seen, wore his flannel, his build, his shadow. But the eyes, too bright, too still. a predator's patience hiding in a borrowed body. The skins hanging around him rustled in the breeze like paper lanterns. One swayed too far, and Eli saw something carved into the inside flesh, words written from the inside out. He stepped closer. Read it, it wears to remember. Another. The longer it stays, the less you are. A third, etched in something darker, almost burnt in. I saw myself smile before it took me. Eli stumbled back, the weight of the air pressing down like a warning. Behind him, a footstep, not rushed, measured, deliberate. He turned and saw himself again, standing at the mouth of the hollow. But now the thing didn't bother pretending. The face sagged where it didn't fit. Its eyes gleamed wet with something deeper than hunger, something ancient. It stepped into the light and opened its mouth. No, voice came out. Only a sound. Low, wet, like a dying animal trying to mimic speech. It clicked its jaw and slowly reached up with one hand and began to peel the face off. The skin came away like latex, revealing the raw, black-veined bone beneath. The jaw cracked unnaturally wide. Eli wanted to scream. Instead, he turned and ran. This time, the thing followed. Faster. Scraping along the canyon wall, limbs distorting, gaining ground. As Eli fled deeper into the gully, the walls began to narrow. Until he saw something strange ahead. Wood. A door, half buried in the canyon wall, weathered and ancient. A door where no door should be. He didn't hesitate. He threw it open and fell into darkness. Eli hit the ground hard. Dust exploded around him, choking the air. His shoulder flared with pain, and the shotgun clattered somewhere out of reach. He coughed, eyes stinging, ears ringing from the fall. It was dark, completely, except for a faint orange glow pulsing from the far side of the chamber. As his vision adjusted, he realized he wasn't in a room. He was in a burial hollow, a place carved from the earth, older than any building. The walls were painted with crude, overlapping symbols. Animals with human eyes, figures with no skin, and tall, thin creatures dragging faces behind them like cloaks. He stood slowly, grabbing a jagged piece of rock from the floor in place of his gun. The pulsing glow came from a fire pit in the center. But there was no fire, only embers, and something inside them. A bundle, wrapped in old cloth and sinew, stitched with symbols. It shifted as he approached, like it was breathing. He didn't want to open it. Every part of him screamed, "Don't." But something deeper, older, needed him to. He reached out, hands trembling, and peeled back the cloth. Inside, a face. Not his. Old. Wrinkled. Still wet. Its eyes opened. And it spoke. It stole me. Eli jumped back, heart hammering. The face twitched in the bundle, lips curling into a half smile. But I remembered who I was. He stared in horror. "What? Are you?" A memory it failed to erase. A voice buried in ash. The peace that refused to quiet. Eli backed away. "I don't want this." "You don't have a choice," it whispered. "It's inside you now." From above, beyond the door, the creature shrieked. A long, wounded howl that echoed like a name forgotten. Eli looked up and realized it hadn't just stolen his face, it had taken a part of him. Eli's pulse thundered in his ears. The stitched face in the bundle stared up at him with wet, knowing eyes. "It's in your blood now," it said, "wearing you from the inside out." Eli stumbled back, gripping the cave wall for balance. No, I shot it. I ran. The face twitched. Its mouth moved without breath. That was the outside. The shell. But it only needs to touch you to start the copy. Eli felt sick. He remembered the moment in the canyon, when the thing reached toward him, when it whispered through the wall, when it left his name in the dirt. He hadn't escaped it. He'd been marked. A sharp pain tore across his ribs. He pulled up his shirt. There, just beneath the skin, lines were forming, like scars, but too clean. Symbols, etchings, words not made for human mouths. "Get it out," he whispered. The face in the bundle blinked slowly. "You can't, but you can finish the binding." Eli froze. "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, it'll finish it for you. And when it does, there'll be two of you. But only one will be left behind." The fire pit pulsed again, brighter this time. Shadows danced along the walls, shifting into shapes that mimicked his silhouette. One stood behind the others, taller, leaning, smiling. A whisper reached Eli's ears from the darkness above. Almost done. The symbols on his skin burned. He fell to his knees, gasping, hands shaking as the lines began to move, rearranging, writing something new across his body. He looked back at the bundle. The stitched face was gone. Ash. Only ash remained. Then, a voice behind him. Eli. He turned slowly and saw himself, smiling. No eyes, just endless white. The thing stepped forward. Eli's exact height, same gait, same scar on the chin from falling off a bike in 5th grade. Same everything, except the eyes. They weren't empty. They weren't glowing. They were just white, like pages without words. Like bone polished too clean, it tilted its head and spoke with his voice. "You should rest now. I can take it from here." Eli stood slowly, the rock still clenched in one hand, the symbols on his skin burning like fresh ink. He backed against the curved wall of the chamber, heart pounding so loud it echoed in the still air. "What are you?" he asked, voice barely, steady. The doppelganger smiled wider. "You already know. I'm what the canyon remembers, what the land forgot." It took another step. "You stepped out of the story. I stepped in." Eli shook his head. "You can't just take me." "But I'm not taking you," the thing said, grin stretching too far. "I'm becoming you." It raised one hand. Eli saw the symbols carved into its wrist, a perfect mirror of the ones forming on his own. The transformation was nearly complete. "You've got my face," Eli growled, "but you'll never have my name." The smile faltered. Just. For a second, Eli charged. He slammed into the thing with all his weight, driving it back against the stone. The rock in his hand struck home. Once, twice, each hit landing with a sickening crunch. The thing didn't bleed, but it shivered, like something was breaking loose inside it. Eli raised the rock again, but the thing caught his wrist. "If I die," it rasped, "you go with me." Eli froze. It leaned close, whispered in his ear, "The name was never yours. You borrowed it, like skin." Then it slammed its forehead into his. Black, darkness, silence. Eli awoke in the dust, dry blood on his temple. The air was cold again, colder than before, like the canyon had shut its mouth around him, sealed him in. The fire pit was dead. No embers. No glow, just a scorched ring where the bundle had once been. He sat up slowly, heart pounding, breath shallow. The symbols on his skin had stopped burning, but they were still there, still moving, faintly, like they were breathing with him now. He looked around. The chamber was empty. No creature, no echo of footsteps, only his own. Unless he reached for the shotgun. It was back, lying beside him, but now clean, polished, no dust, no scratches. It looked like it had never been fired, never been dropped, as if someone had replaced it. He gripped it tight, stood. His head throbbed, memories flickered at the edge of thought, memories that weren't his. A red pickup truck, a wife's voice calling from the kitchen, a child laughing from behind a door. He'd never had a wife, never a kid, but he could see them, hear them, feel them. Someone else's life bleeding into his. Someone. The thing had worn before. He stumbled to the door and threw it open. Daylight poured in, too bright, too sudden. He staggered out, blinking against the sun, expecting desert. But what he saw froze him in place. Not sand, not canyon, but asphalt. A road, paved, familiar, and on the other side, parked beneath a crooked road sign that read, "Welcome to Prentice," was his truck. Still, running, driver's door open, like he'd just stepped out, like nothing had happened, like the last 3 days in the canyon had never been. He stepped toward it, but a voice stopped him cold. "Hey, Eli?" He turned and saw himself standing at the roadside, wearing his clothes, holding his keys, smiling. Eli stared across the road at the man who wore his face. Sunlight caught the edges of the imposter's smile. It was a perfect copy. Too perfect. Like a mask made by something that had studied him for years, not days. The imposter waved casually. "You okay?" it said. "You look like hell." Eli didn't respond. The wind stirred the dust between them. He raised the shotgun, but the man didn't flinch. "Come on," the thing said, walking closer. "You know this is how it ends. You can't go back to your life. You've seen too much. You've split." Eli took a step back. "You're not me." "No," the thing admitted, nodding. "Not anymore." It stood 10 feet away now. Same boots, same scars, same everything, except the eyes. No longer white, now just empty. Like they had forgotten what they were supposed to hold. "You gave me your name in the canyon," it said. "Didn't you feel it? That pull when you ran? That ache when you fought? You didn't win, Eli." It tapped its chest. "You just passed the story." Eli's mouth was dry. Why come back? Why not just take someone else? The thing tilted its head. "Because you're still tethered, still hanging, on. And I don't want to fight every time I wear this skin." It smiled. "So I came to ask. Will you let go?" The question hit Eli like a stone to the ribs. Let go, just fade, like all the others. Let the skinwalker carry his name, his life, his history forward like nothing ever happened. His hands shook. His shotgun dipped. And the thing saw it. "That's it," it whispered. "You've seen the face behind the face. There's nothing left to be afraid of." It stepped forward again, and Eli screamed, "No," and fired. Boom! The shotgun kicked hard against Eli's shoulder. The ADBC blast hit the imposter square in the chest. It staggered, spun, and collapsed in the dust. Eli stood frozen, gun smoking, breath ragged. His ears rang. His heart thundered in his throat like it wanted out, but he didn't lower the weapon. Not yet. The body twitched once, then stilled. Dust settled, and the silence returned, broken only by the faint buzz of cicadas in the distance. He stepped forward, slow, cautious. The body was sprawled face up in the dirt. Blood pooled beneath it, but dark, not red, like ink soaked too long in paper. The chest was torn wide, bone exposed, muscles unraveling. But the face, still smiling, still his, too perfect, too still. He knelt, raised the barrel again, and the thing's eyes snapped open, white, glowing now, alive with something ancient and furious. The grin twisted into a snarl as it rasped, "You can't shoot a story, Eli." And then it moved, not up, not forward. It sank into the dust like water into cloth. dissolving limb by limb. The skin peeled back as it vanished, unraveling in long, wet strips, leaving only sand and the smell of burned cedar. Eli scrambled, back, heart hammering. The truck engine was still running. He looked up at it like a drowning man spotting land, and ran. He jumped in, slammed the door, threw it into gear. As he peeled out onto the highway, tires spitting gravel, he didn't look in the rearview mirror, not even once, because he knew if he saw his own face again, he wouldn't come back. Eli didn't stop driving for over an hour. Dust trailed behind the truck like smoke. He gripped the wheel too tightly, knuckles white, jaw locked, sweat clinging to his temples. The road stretched flat and hot, but he barely noticed the heat. He only saw faces. In every reflection, the rear view, the side mirror, the windows, he saw himself, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying. Once, just watching. He tore the mirror off, the windshield, and threw it into the passenger footwell. When he finally pulled into the town of Prentice, it felt like stepping into a dream that had soured. The gas station was where it always was. So was the diner, the post office, the rusted bell over the fire station. But everyone looked, distant, like they knew something but weren't going to say it. The old man who always sat on the corner bench nodded at him, but his eyes didn't follow. At the gas station, the clerk filled his tank in silence. Eli didn't speak. Until, "You, seen anyone? Looks like me?" The kid raised an eyebrow. "Like your twin?" Eli shook his head. "No, not really. A beat." The kid looked at the ground, shrugged. "Folks been seeing weird stuff. Out by Crow Canyon. Thought it was coyotes. Or a skinwalker." Eli's breath caught. The kid glanced at him. "You okay?" Eli forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." Paid in cash and left without another word. He didn't go home. He drove past the turnoff, kept going until the town faded behind him like a mirage. He needed time, space. A place with no mirrors, no stories, no reflections that grinned back, and somewhere, buried in the sound of the tires on asphalt, he heard it again. Almost done. But when he looked around, the truck was empty. Eli found the motel just past mile marker 107. No sign, no vacancy light. Just 5 dusty rooms in a row and a flickering porch bulb that buzzed with dying insects. The office was empty. Key rack, unattended, a small bell resting beside an old guest ledger. He rang once. No answer, so he took a key, room 3, and left a crumpled 20 on the counter. The room smelled of bleach and long-dead cigarettes. The bed sagged in the middle like it remembered other people's nightmares. The mirror over the sink was cracked. The television didn't work. Perfect. He locked the door, drew the curtains, shoved a chair under the knob, then collapsed on the bed, shotgun resting on his chest. Sleep took him like a drug. Deep, dreamless, until it wasn't. Until he was standing in the canyon again, holding the face like the paper in his hands, feeling it pulse, warm, alive, and hearing that voice again. "You're hollow now, easier to wear." He woke with a jolt, sweat-soaked, mouth dry. The room was silent, but something had moved. The shotgun was gone. He sat up fast. The room looked the same, but off. Like someone had been there and tried to put things back the way they found them, but got it just a little wrong. The chair wasn't under the door anymore. The curtains were slightly parted, and in the sink, a smear of red. He walked to it, dipped his finger. Not blood. Ink, and drawn on the cracked glass of the mirror, just one word. Again. His own handwriting, but mirrored, as if someone had written it from inside the mirror. Eli stared at the word. Again. The ink was thick, almost tar-like. It hadn't dripped. It just sat there, stubborn and still, as if it had always been part of the glass. His reflection looked tired, older, like it had aged 5 years in 5 minutes. He reached up, wiped a thumb through the word. The ink didn't smear. It stuck to his skin like oil, and as he looked into the mirror, something changed. His reflection didn't move with him. He froze, raised one hand. The reflection stayed still, then smiled. But he hadn't. "You're late," it said. The voice didn't come from the mirror. It came from behind him. Eli spun, heart hammering. No one. But the door was unlocked. He hadn't unlocked it. He grabbed the shotgun, now leaning against the window where he hadn't left it. His reflection still smiled in the mirror. "You're not real anymore, Eli," it said. "You're just the version that stayed scared," Eli growled. "Shut up." "Why? You'll be me soon enough." He smashed the mirror with the shotgun butt. Glass shattered across the sink and floor, but behind it, no wall, just blackness. A hollow void where plaster should have been. It pulsed. Once. Twice. Then began to pull. Eli staggered back as wind screamed through the broken mirror, dragging the curtains outward, scattering dust and broken glass across the floor. He grabbed the frame, pulled himself away, and something inside the mirror grabbed his arm. It was his own hand. Paler. Bonnier. Wrong. It gripped tight and whispered, "We're going to wear this right this time." Eli screamed and yanked backward, boots scraping across the linoleum. The hand coming through the mirror tightened its grip, cold as stone, strong as rebar. Its nails dug into his forearm like hooks, and where they touched, symbols bloomed beneath his skin, dark and writhing. "Let me go," Eli roared. From inside the shattered mirror, his voice replied calmly, "But we're not separate anymore." The wind grew stronger, pulling everything inward. Curtains, paper, dust, the scent of blood and old wood. The broken mirror glowed now with a dull, sickly light. Inside it, a version of Eli leaned forward, smiling wide, eyes empty. "You're just the draft I didn't finish." Eli reached for the shotgun with his free hand. The mirror. Eli snarled, "That won't help. I am the trigger." The real Eli didn't respond. He shoved the barrel into the reflection's wrist and fired. The blast knocked him backward. The mirror exploded, shards flying like razors through the room. The wind stopped. Silence returned like a slamming door. Eli lay gasping on the floor, his forearm bleeding, the edges of his sleeves torn. The shotgun was half melted, the barrel warped from the close blast. Smoke hung in the room like regret. He looked toward the mirror. There was no mirror anymore. Just a clean wall, no black void, no light, no words. The glass was gone, but his arm still ached, and the symbols still moved beneath the skin, just faint enough to question. He stood slowly, heart pounding. In the motel's silence, one thought echoed louder than the rest. If he was the draft, who was the author? Outside, an engine started, and it sounded just like his truck. Eli rushed to the window. The parking lot was empty. No headlights, no truck, but the sound of the engine still hummed. Not outside, but beneath him. A low, thrumming noise vibrating through the floorboards, like the motel was sitting on something vast and mechanical. Alive. He grabbed what was left of the shotgun, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. No other guests. No signs of life. Just buzzing lights and the long echo of his boots on tile. The air had changed. Thicker, as if the motel was remembering something. At the far end of the hall, he saw a door he didn't notice before. Room 0. No number plate, just the outline of a door, on a wall that shouldn't have had one. He approached, heartbeat picking up with every step. He reached for the knob, and the door opened on its own. Inside was a room unlike the others. No bed, no furniture, just walls of mirrors. Hundreds of them, layered and angled, each one showing a different version of him. Some old, some young, some wearing uniforms or hospital gowns, or skin that wasn't theirs. And at the center of the room, a chair, facing away, occupied. Eli stepped inside slowly, the door shut behind him. The humming grew louder. The chair creaked as its occupant turned, and he saw himself. But this one was older, worn, eyes like glass, thin cracks running through them. The figure smiled faintly. "You made it." Eli raised the shotgun. "Who are you?" The figure didn't blink. "I'm the one who started the story, the first face it wore." It tapped its temple. "And now, I need to write the ending." Eli didn't lower the shotgun. Not yet. The man in the chair, his older self, or a version of one, studied him with hollow, almost pitying eyes. "You've been walking in circles," he said. "Not through places, but through selves. The skinwalker doesn't just take your face, it takes your narrative." Eli's throat tightened. "You're saying it rewrites me?" The man nodded, slowly. "It doesn't hunt you. It edits you. One sentence at a time." The mirrors around them shimmered. Reflections twitched. In one mirror, Eli saw himself lying in a hospital bed. In another, alone in a cell, screaming through bloody teeth. Yet another, smiling, holding a child's hand at a park that never existed. "Every version," the man said, "is a draft. Some it keeps, some it throws away, but it never stops writing." Eli stepped closer. "I killed it." The man gave a sad smile. "No, you killed a version of it, just like it killed versions of you." The humming grew louder. The mirrors began to vibrate. Glass cracked. The man leaned forward. "There's one way out, but it's not survival. It's authorship." Eli narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" "You don't end the story by running. You end it by taking the pen back." From the folds of his coat, the old man pulled a small object, a pen, but not ordinary, carved from bone. The nib shimmered like obsidian. He held it out. "Write the final draft before it writes you out." Eli didn't move, didn't breathe. Outside the room, footsteps began echoing down the hallway. Heavy, wet, getting closer. The footsteps grew louder, closer, dragging something behind them. The old man didn't flinch. He held the bone pen between his fingers as if it weighed nothing, yet somehow more than everything. His voice was calm, steady. "Take it. If you don't, it will write for you." Again. Eli's hand hovered, then closed around the pen. It was cold, too cold for bone. And as soon as his skin touched it, something shifted. The mirrors stilled. Every reflection turned toward him. Some smiled, some screamed. One banged silently against the glass, mouthing, "Don't." He looked at the old man. "What do I write?" The man smiled faintly. "That's the trick, son. You don't write truth. You write finality. The skinwalker doesn't fear you. It fears the end. It feeds on doubt, on repetition, on infinite versions." The man stood slowly, knees popping. "Give it a period. Give yourself the last word." The door behind Eli creaked open. The footsteps stopped, and in stepped the thing. But this time, it didn't wear his face. It wore all of them. Dozens, hundreds, layered, phasing, flickering through forms like pages being flipped too fast to read. It grinned with 1,000 mouths and spoke with 1,000 versions of his voice. "You can't escape the draft, Eli. You are what I write." Eli raised the pen. His skin began to burn again, the symbols glowing beneath his flesh. The creature paused, eyes narrowed, a sliver of hesitation. Eli stepped forward, and for the first time, he spoke the words. This is the last version. He stabbed the pen downward, not into the creature, but into the floor, into the story. The mirrors shattered. The room screamed. The moment the bone pen pierced the floor, everything unraveled. Light tore through the cracks like liquid fire spilling, upward in blinding veins. The floor pulsed like it had veins of its own, and the symbols carved into Eli's skin glowed white-hot in answer. The skinwalker shrieked, not just in rage, in fear. Its many faces flickered violently, unable to stabilize. Eli saw his own face melt into a child's, then into a woman's, then something ancient, beast-like, eyeless and hollow. The creature clawed at its own skin, trying to hold itself together. "Stop!" it screamed, 1,000 voices layered into one. "You don't get to finish me. You're just a page." But Eli stood tall, the pen still buried in the foundation of the motel. He felt it, not power, but authorship. The final word. The pen burned brighter. The mirrors shattered one by one, each with a different scream, like ghosts being ripped from a throat. The air twisted. The motel shook, the walls blistering, the ceiling cracking like eggshells. The skinwalker lunged and fell to its knees mid-stride. Its body unraveled, like thread pulled from an old coat. Its shape disintegrated, face after face peeling away, like brittle paper. It reached for Eli, but Eli was already writing, not on paper, not in ink, but into the air, carving words with the motion of his hand. This story ends. This story ends. This story ends. And with each repetition, the creature dimmed, faded, until only one face remained, his own, and it whispered, "Thank you." Then it disappeared. Gone. No sound, no dust, just absence. Silence. True, total, holy silence. Eli stood alone in the shattered room. No mirrors, no reflection, no hum of something waiting just beyond the walls. Only the pen remained, still sunk into the cracked floor where the motel had split open like old skin. It no longer glowed. Its heat was gone. It felt spent. He bent, pulled it free. It was light now, hollow, no weight behind it, like it had been emptied of something that once roared. Eli looked around. The air itself felt different, thinner, lighter, like someone had thrown open a window in a long-sealed room, and yet he was still here, still breathing, still himself. He rolled up his sleeve. The symbols on his arm were fading. They no longer moved, no longer pulsed with that strange, otherworldly rhythm. They were becoming scars now, like the story had been written and closed. He looked at the pen in his hand again. There was a faint crack along its side. The bone had split down the middle, just enough to show the hollowness inside. No ink, no core, just silence. He turned and left the room. The motel didn't resist. It stood still, quiet, just an old building with too many memories and no guests. He stepped outside into the night, where the stars had returned in full, clear, sharp, like pinholes in the sky's skin. His truck was there, exactly where he'd left it, the keys still dangling in the ignition. He hesitated only once, looking back at the door labeled Room 0. There was no number now, no handle, no door, just wall. He got into the truck, started the engine, and pulled onto the highway. No wind, no whispers, just road ahead and behind him. A motel that no longer remembered. Miles slipped by beneath the tires. The road stretched straight and empty, cutting through the desert like a scar. Eli didn't check the mirrors. He didn't need to. For the first time in days, maybe longer, he knew he was alone. Truly, completely alone. No voices in the vents. No footsteps just behind. No whispers asking for his skin. He stopped just outside a nameless diner in a two-gas pump town, the kind of place built before highways were paved and mostly forgotten now. The neon sign buzzed half-lit. Open. Inside, the waitress didn't ask questions, just poured coffee into a chipped mug and gave him that look people give you when they know you've been through something but don't want to make you say it. He sipped in silence, stared out the window. The desert stretched beyond the glass, golden with early morning light. He reached into his coat pocket and felt it again. The pen. Cracked. Useless now. But he kept it anyway, because it was proof that it had all happened, that it wasn't just a dream stitched together from fear and long nights, and yet something still tugged at the edge of him. A thread, unfinished, unsettled, not fear, not presence, just echo. He looked around the diner. It was almost empty, but one booth, far in the back, held a man he hadn't noticed before. Man was wearing a denim jacket, greasy hair, pale skin. Face turned toward the window. When Eli looked closer, the man had no reflection in the glass. Eli froze, gripped his coffee like a weapon, but the man never turned, never moved, just sat there, staring as if waiting for someone. To finish the sentence he never got to. Eli left the coffee untouched. Every part of him, every burned nerve, every scarred instinct, told him to walk away, to get in the truck and keep driving. But something about the man in the back booth held him. It wasn't just the missing reflection, it was the stillness, too perfect, too precise, like he wasn't breathing, just sitting there, mimicking the idea of a man. Eli stood, walked slowly across. The linoleum. The bell above the door jingled as someone left, but he didn't turn. He reached the booth and stopped. The man didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't even look up. "Who are you?" Eli asked. No response. "Are you it? Another version?" The man slowly lifted his head. His face was blank, not unreadable. Blank. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin, pulled smooth across where features should be. Still, Eli heard a voice. Not aloud, inside his head. "You're not finished." Eli staggered back. "I ended it. I ended you." The skin-faced man tilted his head. "You ended a line, not the story." Eli shook his head, gripping the pen in his coat. "I destroyed the draft. You stopped one version, but there are others. Pieces that slipped through." The air around the booth began to shimmer. Eli blinked. The man was gone. So was the booth. So was the diner. He stood alone in a field of blank paper, stretching out in all directions, endless pages beneath his feet. The sky above was black, streaked, with white lines like a page half sketched, and far in the distance, something moved. A figure with 1,000 faces, each one of them his. The paper field stretched forever, blank, endless, soft beneath Eli's feet, like walking on memory not yet made. The wind didn't blow. It whispered, "Write or be written." Each footstep left no mark, no crease, no scuff. The pages rejected his presence, as if they didn't recognize him anymore, as if he hadn't earned a place in this version of the story. Ahead, the figure moved slowly across the horizon. Eli couldn't make out its full form, but every time he blinked, it changed. One moment it wore his high school face, naive, smiling, unaware. The next, it was gaunt, aged, dying, dragging its feet like it had carried every word ever written about him. He moved toward it. Faster now. The pages didn't ripple underfoot, but his shadow did. Long, spidery, trailing in every direction. It stretched into versions. Eli in uniform, Eli with a beard he never grew, Eli holding a knife instead of a pen. They followed him like regrets. The figure stopped, waited. When Eli came within 20 feet, it finally took shape. And it was him, but with no eyes, no mouth, just shifting skin. Faces beneath faces, pressing against the surface like trapped souls in a jar. It raised one arm. From its hand dangled a pen. Not the bone one. A new one, metal, silver, and untouched. It offered it forward, but not as a gift. As a challenge. Eli felt the cracked bone pen in his pocket suddenly heavy again, pulsing with something that wasn't quite fear. The faceless figure tilted its head. "Write your ending, Eli," it whispered inside his skull. "Or I will." The pages below them began to ripple, text forming beneath their feet in thousands of threads, and not all of them told the truth. The figure held the silver pen between its fingers like a dagger made of thought. Eli stood frozen, fingers brushing the old bone pen in his pocket, his version, his chapter. It pulsed like a heartbeat, though he wasn't sure if it was his or someone else's anymore. Around them, the blank pages of the world began to fill, not with words, with scenes, memories, versions. Eli watched as a memory to his left formed, him sitting at the diner with a child, a daughter he never had, her laugh realer than sound. To his right, another, Eli buried in the canyon, skin peeled from his bones, still twitching, still alive. Farther back, a home he never built, a woman he almost married, the bullet that never missed. Each scene played like a film on parchment, ink pulsing and writhing. The faceless figure stepped forward. "Every Eli is a draft. Only one ends." It held out the silver pen. "Take mine. You'll live a better version." Eli's hand trembled. The scenes surrounded him. Joy, pain, possibility, regret. He could choose a different life, a different story. But the bone pen in his pocket whispered louder now. "Your story." His hand closed around it. The figure recoiled. Its skin shifted, boiling. Faces turned away. Eyes blinked shut. Eli stepped forward, pulling the pen from his coat. "No," he said. "I already wrote the ending." He drove the bone pen down into the ground, not into a scene, not into a memory, but into himself, right into his shadow. The pages screamed. The ink bled upward. The figure shattered into 100 fragments of story, every face screaming in silence, and above them all, words appeared in the sky. The final draft. The moment the bone pen pierced Eli's shadow, everything froze. The scenes around him halted mid-motion. The child in the diner paused, spoon mid-air. The canyon version of himself stopped twitching, mouth wide in a silent scream. The faceless versions, the ghosts, the flickering drafts, all locked in place like statues carved from memory. The sky pulsed with light, and in that blank light, new text began to form. Slow, deliberate. "This is the last version of Eli Carter." The ripple moved outward, a command woven into the world itself. The pages folded inward around him, curving like the inside of a closing book. Each memory was sealed, the ink drying into permanence. E. dropped to one knee, gasping, the bone pen shattered in his hand, its last sentence written. From the remnants of its shaft, black threads unraveled and sank into him, burning away the etchings on his skin, wiping clean the symbols that had whispered since the canyon. The figure, the skinwalker, stood still, head lowered, no longer shifting. It looked up one last time, its face calm, almost human. It spoke not aloud, but in thought. So many versions, so many faces. "I only ever wanted to remember one." Eli stepped forward. "Then remember this," he said, voice sharp. He touched the figure's chest with his hand. the shadows that made it recoiled, and then crumbled. Piece by piece, the entity fell apart, skin and story peeling away like ash, on the wind. No scream, no fight, just surrender. The wind stilled, the pages stopped rippling, only Eli remained, alone. And then, even the paper faded. The world around him collapsed into light, not blinding, but warm, real. He blinked and opened his eyes in his own bed. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. Eli lay still for a long time, staring at the ceiling. His heartbeat was slow. His body didn't ache. The symbols on his arms were gone, just smooth skin, unmarked. The sheets were warm. The room smelled like dust and coffee. He sat up. The shotgun was gone. So was the pen. He touched his chest where the bone pen had stabbed his shadow. Nothing. Just a memory now. A memory that felt more solid than the walls around him. He rose, walked to the bathroom mirror, paused, stared. The face staring back was his. Just his. Not grinning, not twitching, not watching with something else behind the eyes. Just Eli. He laughed, low and hoarse. It echoed in the small room like music. He turned on the faucet, splashed his face with cold water, and felt it. Weight. Realness. Not a draft, not a ghost. Final. He stepped out into the hallway. The world outside was quiet but not dead. Birdsong, a lawnmower somewhere, a breeze. No whispering. No voices in the wind, no reflections sneaking a blink. It was done. And yet, when he stepped outside and looked to the horizon, there was a shimmer, faint like heat rising off pavement. He narrowed his eyes at the very edge of his vision, just where the real began to blur, was a page, folding in on itself, disappearing, burning at the edges, closing. He smiled, then turned away, and for the first time in forever, he didn't look back. Weeks passed, then months. Eli lived quietly. He didn't go back to Crow Canyon, didn't visit the motel, didn't ask anyone if they remembered strange disappearances or stories about people wearing the wrong faces. Because deep down, he knew they wouldn't remember. The story had ended, and the world had moved on. He worked at a garage, lived in a small house outside town, read books he'd once ignored, watched sunsets, felt the wind on his skin and knew it was his. But some nights, he still dreamed of pages, endless, shifting pages. Sometimes they were blank, other times they were filled with lives he'd never lived. In one dream, he was a writer, at a desk in a house swallowed by desert. He was older, hands ink-stained, eyes tired. He'd just finished a manuscript. And as he laid down the final period, a shadow leaned against the window, smiling. Eli would wake with a start, but the fear never lasted long, because even if the shadows watched, even if the pages still whispered, they had no power without the pen, and he had broken it. Or maybe used it, finished the draft. One morning, he found something strange on his porch. A book, old, leather-bound, no title on the spine. Inside, only one sentence was written on the first page. To the one who finally said enough. He smiled, closed it gently, and set it beside his bed. He never opened it again. Didn't need to, because the face in the mirror never changed again. Because the silence didn't speak anymore. Because the story was over. And this was his.